his grandfather, Piso's grandfather, paternal grandfather, had written most of it. Luke was written 85 to 90. Luke was after the fictional name of his son Fabius Justus, whose real name was Marcus. We discovered that later. He was Marcian, he was Marcus of Byzantium, named after his great-grandfather, who was Piso's grandfather, who was Marcus Calpurnius Piso.
I have it up here, yeah.
Right. He wrote that, and Piso, meanwhile, was writing his Jewish war, Bellum Judaicum, which was 75 to 80. And about 90 he wrote Antiquities, or supervised Antiquities. The Herodians wrote most of Antiquities. And about 100 he wrote his Vita, which was a sequel to his Jewish Antiquities, to inform the aristocracy of all the numbers. He didn't say what they were, but he put in the numbers so they could better understand what he was doing. Because if there was one thing he wanted, it was honor. He was the greatest egotist, the greatest writer, the greatest honor seeker there's ever been. And without him having created all these systems of code, nobody would have ever figured it out.
I think one of his sons even says in a writing how many wonderful different writing styles you have.
That was Pliny the Younger. Pliny wrote public letters too.
Yeah.
And in one of those, and we neglected to make a note of which one of the public letters it was, he writes to his grandfather, his wife's grandfather, who is also his much older half-brother. He says, "Oh, you write so wonderfully. You write in so many different styles," he said. And he did. And he just loved honor, and he just loved to be praised. And he just loved that his story should last forever, although he wasn't sure. When he wrote Ecclesiastes, vanity, vanity, yeah, everything is vanity.
Everything I see is vanity.
Vanity and emptiness. I don't know what will happen to all my life's work. I've worked so hard on my life's work. It may be just thrown out after I die. Who knows? Maybe I've worked for nothing. It's this Ecclesiastes, which the Jews
this is
call
confessionals.
Kohelet, the preacher, is in effect, it's his confession of what he's done.
No question about that.
He couldn't escape from confessing of what he did. And he wrote Ecclesiastes for that purpose. The greatest writer who ever lived. It was a great decision on my part. Until Doug came along, I'd had it for 6 years. I'd figured out 75, 85% of it. But it's a great responsibility. I used to think, what will all these elderly ladies in tennis shoes in California have to believe in if they didn't have this? Let it be, let it be. But Doug and others finally said, look.
I have an aunt who crosses herself when she passes in front of the church.
Well, look, it's pure faith, and it keeps people on a moral compass. And it's difficult to create as marvelous a system of this, which would support a moral code.
Yeah.
I mean, society needs a moral code. So I had misgivings for years before I took it upon myself to try to spread the word. And I couldn't stop these former Jews, who were now atheists, from running around breaking up Jewish families by talking them into Christianity. And they wouldn't listen. The rabbis wouldn't listen because they were afraid. Christian believers wouldn't listen because they were so content in the arms of Jesus. And who's going to listen? I said to myself, well, the world needs a moral code, but nobody's done it for 2,000 years, and if I don't do it, Jews will continue getting wiped out in pogroms and inquisitions and by Hitlers who are trying to expand their power by using the ideas of Satan against the Jews. And the non-Jewish world will continue mirrored in darkness like some of the British poets have written, and there's no solution. We can shoot rocket ships to the moon, we can clone DNA, we can invent internal combustion engines. Now we've got computers and the internet, all this stuff. One thing is sacrosanct and it must not be told to the masses. Just the leadership get to know? I said, that's fiddle. I'm not going to put up with that. As far as I'm concerned, I know the secret and I'm not going to sit on it and torture myself. People need to be liberated. There are millions of Christians out there who are used for their money and they're laughed at behind their back by their leaders. It's time they found out. It's been a tremendous burden for them. They've been used too, just like Jews have. Everybody needs to be liberated from this.
I wanted to ask one, we're going to merge two. We've covered almost all the points I had here. The book Enoch, I think he first creates the idea and the concept Satan.
No, he refers to the devil and gives him the name Satan in his writings when he sends the angel Gabriel to Mary in the story that you will be mother to a Savior and his name will be Emmanuel. Perhaps they hadn't settled on the name of Jesus yet. I don't know. And then he sends Gabriel again. He comes, either Gabriel or Michael, comes down to see Daniel twice. Very interesting. In Daniel,
what year was Daniel?
26. About the year 95. And he comes down to see Daniel. And first time he comes as an angel from heaven, and then he comes down as actual Gabriel. And he tells Daniel, this book should be sealed up and hidden until the world is more educated and is ready for this information. Another confession by Piso that it's all a fraud. But we can't tell people yet. My story may evaporate in 200, 300, 500 years or 1,000 years. He had no idea it was going to last for 2,000 years.
Okay, he created Gabriel earlier than the book Enoch.
Oh, yeah.
Did he create Michael in the book Enoch then? He has two then.
I think he created Michael and Gabriel and then put them into the book of Enoch.
About the year 100. To
predate the book of Enoch to establish a foundation for the names of the archangels.
Right. Because it's not in the Jewish religion at all. It doesn't show up there at all.
The Hebrews have no archangels, just angels appearing.
Correct. And no one names
have other names.
No names associated with them.
No names. It's not in the Torah. It's not in the Bible. Later in the Talmud, the Jews gave up on that point and they started referring to them, and they made up a couple more archangels. So we have 5 archangels, and one of the 5 archangels has a different name, 2 different names for him. But that's where the archangel came from. He had to establish an early foundation to show that in the writer, whoever he may have been, and it was himself, the writer had an ancient foundation for the names of archangels because they were named in the writings that he did of Enoch, which is written about 100 and backdated to the early days of Jewish history, of Judean history.
As I remember, Jesus goes into a cave and sees Satan. Do you remember in one of the stories?
No, I don't think so. He's up on the mountain, and Satan. He tells Jesus to jump, and Jesus won't jump. No, the story about the cave is one that's used in the inception of the Quran.
Which I should mention right now. For all those Muslims watching this and gleefully cheering away and say, hey, Christianity is a fraud, I'd like to remind you that through the entire Quran, the we mentioned through the whole Quran is referring to chapter 2, verse 98 in the Quran, which is Archangel Gabriel Michael, who theoretically dictates the whole Quran to Muhammad, who was illiterate in a cave. You may have 3 problems here. One, Archangel Gabriel and Michael were created by Piso. They're fictional characters. And Muhammad was illiterate. How is he going to write this stuff down? So you might have a problem with the story.
It's not anybody's fault. Everybody has been used by their church leadership.
Or political leadership in this case.
We've always been used by political leadership
To control the
for
masses.
the device of religion. The communists said religion is the opiate of the people. And to an extent that's true. It doesn't mean communism is right, because that's also a system of ultimate control through
It's
the
another
mind.
religion.
It's another religion.
The state becomes God.
The Catholic Church of the Middle Ages, reborn under the name of Bolshevism, just as the Quran is.
It's feudalism, is what it is.
Our plea, my plea, is for ecumenism, where everybody should recognize God, or if they don't believe in God, just follow a moral code. Be kind to each other, as expressed in our booklet on Islam, which we also have available. The idea that people who love their brother of other religions, of no religions, would be doing the right thing. And that's the only way to have peace in the world.
The final
we
thing,
certainly don't need another 700 years war.
No,
like
we don't have
between
700 years.
Muslims and Christians.
the last thing
Too many horrible weapons in the world today.
The last thing I want to cover is the books that Piso and his relatives wrote and forced the Jews to do the Hebrew translation and put it into the Jewish canon. The reason is many Messianic Jewish groups, as well as Christian groups who are trying to evangelize Jews, try to point to the Piso books to prove that Jesus fulfilled these ancient prophecies. Now, the ones I know of are, and scholars, there's two Isaiahs, Isaiah 1 and Isaiah 2. Isaiah 2 goes from chapters 40 to 66. The reason why it is 66 chapters is because we said earlier, Flavius Josephus total 66 in Greek small numbering. The reason he adds 26 chapters is the same reason. You can go tell them the 10 and the 16.
My friend Doug and I disagree on a few things, not on the main thing.
Not on this
we
one, though.
disagree. I say there were 3 Isaiahs. He says there were 2.
2 for sure.
We can compromise perhaps on 2.5. But one thing's for sure. He got a hold of Isaiah.
He added stuff.
He added all kinds of stuff. And he definitely added, between the end of chapter 42, where the book supposedly ends, up to chapter 66. He also changed Ezekiel. He also added to Jeremiah, his son, Justus, after his father died in 118, and then he murdered his brother and the other 3 counselors. He wrote Micah, he wrote Malachi, put in prophecies of the virgin birth in Nazareth, Bethlehem.
Zechariah.
And he wrote Zechariah at the end of the 3rd Jewish revolt.
Daniel.
He just diluted the Jewish writings to pieces, forced the rabbis